Hello, lovely people, and welcome back to Wild Woman podcast for another inspiring episode with an amazing lady. We've just been chatting for a few moments there and wondering how this connection was made and how I found her. But this is, I think you'll understand as I talk to Oonagh Elisa Hurley, um, why that might be. And we've already been talking about fairies to give you a little uh, sense of the work that she does. And you'll see when the camera goes on her, the beautiful art that she creates. And Oonagh is from or living in Santa Fe in New Mexico in America. And she is a self-taught visionary artist. I just thought those words were so beautiful. I've never heard too many artists describe themselves in that way. And I think many of us often feel you have to, there's just certain people I always felt who are artists and the rest of us are not. But I think I'm learning to understand, that we are all artists. We're all artists of our lives. We all co-create. And she co-creates paintings with the divine energies of creation. She is an intuitive, a spiritual guide. I will let her tell you herself. After this long introduction, welcome, Oonagh Elisa. Well, is it both names you go by or just Oonagh?
I love both names.
Hmm.
Uh, it's kind of a mouthful, but Una and Una Elisa love both.
Yeah. And
So
I'm just so welcome, firstly. Welcome to the
thank you.
podcast. I'm so delighted to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I mean, we were discussing right before it sort of went on that we're not sure how the connection was made, and that's one of those mystical, magical ways that I feel are, very prevalent in our lives if we offer that opportunity. And the more and more that I invite that in, kind of the mystical unknown and trust, it's creating more and more fascinating opportunities and quiet moments and connections that I feel are really vital right now for me, for community, and then going out for everyone. So we did it. We figured out how to
We
get
did
together.
it. And even the Zoom links were different times, and it's so many funny things happening. I think the fairies were playing with us. I'm realizing more and more this world is we need to have more fun. That's something that comes to me. I've lived a life that felt quite serious and struggle and you know everything has to be a certain way, and I think the times maybe aren't they that we're living in this feel I feel I'm being called to be more playful and joyful, and that's how we're designed to live. What do you
You
feel about
know,
that?
when you first started talking about, uh, you know, those who might be called artists, and then that we all have this artistry. Um, I did create a while ago, maybe 20 years ago, a, a facilitating, it was called Spirits Song Intuitive Painting. And I led workshops, a lot of women, some men, children. I did it at museums and I did it, sort of conducted them privately and then with small groups. And I would say the primary tenet of that was play. That there were artists, serious artists, who felt they were completely stuck and they, well known, and they just couldn't move past themselves. And then there were those who felt like maybe in first grade, the teacher had said something about their tree and they didn't want to try anything ever again. And so I really downloaded this concept about being 3 or 4 and having big sheets of paper on the wall for each individual. And it was about starting with the premise that you're 4 years old. You don't say, wow, that doesn't look right. You say, I love yellow. I love yellow. I'm going to go get the yellow paint. And then you maybe use your hands. And it was, I probably did that for about 10 years. And I occasionally do it for work with someone individually. But it is that premise of play, of
Mm,
like the beginner's mind,
yes.
and and that the child really does embody and encompass all of the wisdom. I mean, we all came in as divine sparks and, entered into family and whatever community and schools. And a lot of that was molded and shaped and for many people confined. And so it is actually also a part of my nature. I feel so blessed that I always felt very childlike. And, it's something I have two adult kids and they're like, oh, there's mom doing that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not? Why should I be serious when I can play? And
I know that's the best line. It is. That should be on a t-shirt. Why should I be serious when I can play? It really
yeah,
should, though.
yeah, yeah. And it enters into, I mean, even the most serious experiences, where uh real respect and integrity is commanded, this energy of the child can diffuse so many things. Um, I really,
Can you give an example just when you say that?
all right, let's see. Well, I work in a gallery. It's a very sophisticated high-end gallery, and um I've told, and the woman I work for knows that I really have to walk my walk in there. I can't walk as a saleswoman. I create what I create. I listen to what I listen to. I hang out with fairies and tree spirits. So to walk in there, I mean, I can put on the clothing. Uh, that I can say, people will say, something about the art and how much is it worth and does it appreciate? And I'll say, well, we can talk about that, or we can talk about, does this bring you joy? Does this ignite the playful part of you, the child in you? Because if it ignites that, you're going to bring that energy when you purchase this painting into your home, and you're going to have this around you, and you're going to feel so good. And I think I walk in that. Well, I know I do. So it's a different way of approaching what might be a serious purchase, about the kind of the lighter value of things, that there's this energy of beauty and joy and play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's so beautiful. How do people respond when you say that?
that's a great question. I feel people are starving for genuine communication, like authentic. I'm pretty. I've lived in a lot of places with a lot of different kinds of people, like on this island in Maine with the Rockefellers and George Mitchell and Martha Stewart and the fishermen and the lobstermen and the teachers. And and I grew up in a huge family. I learned a lot about talking to different people, and I'm intuitive. So I'm aware of how to share that. I feel when we're authentic, it comes across as authentic. I don't have an edge. I don't have anything to prove. I sell the art because of that, of the truth of it, that this will enhance your life if this is what you're drawn to. I mean, and
Hmm.
I think people, it opens them up. And I think people are so ready to really welcome in truth. Um, down to earth connection, like real connection. Like, I mean, you wouldn't expect it walking into this gallery, but really, the four of us, these four women, are all pretty body that. And I think people are refreshed. And so I've even heard people go out and go, wow, that was so fun. That was such a fun experience. I'm like, anything else? Um, so yeah, I feel, everyone is all to me, all beings have this. Like you said, all beings are artists. I believe all beings truly are creative at their core, and it's conditioning that has shifted that or blocked it, or they've forgotten. And I do believe there's a resurgence in whatever way it is that you uh, describe creativity, which is related to creating, which is related to creation, to all that is. I mean, that's our core. So to me, creativity is at the core of our lives here and beyond. Like that's kind of, I have to practice. I'm grounded. I have Virgo rising. I can be grounded,
Mm.
but I also have a Pisces moon and a few other things that just take me out. And
Yeah.
so I very much feel this is one of the uh, kind of the tenets that will really serve humanity right now is each of us owning our authentic self. And and if we aren't in some component of joy, because there is meant to be joy, to ask all it is, share with me how I can really activate, the joyous expression of my authentic self and let me express it, like really own it. And I saw that you did Reiki and this, I mean, this is a highly creative endeavor you're doing, inviting in people and letting the flow happen. And Reiki, the universal energies just coming in to allow people to let go of what isn't theirs and ground in what is. I mean, that I feel is what we're doing right now, I hope.
Yeah. I hope so too. It's, when you talk about, yeah, creativity is what I'm sort of struck by when you're speaking there. So it brings me to, I'll just mention, listeners have heard me say this, but I had cancer in 2016. So I would describe that I'm a Pisces rising and a Pisces sun. So I'm a little bit out there. And then I've moon in Aries. So the sort of fire and water and yeah. So not as grounded maybe as I'm working on that. But I worked in a very sort of grounded, I suppose. I worked in corporate and banking and university, but I never really felt I was expressing myself. But I remembered that I had felt it as a very young child. So I'll ask you in a few minutes because I always think it's very interesting and hearing how people's lives have unfolded to a point where they are living as best, from their authentic selves and from their creativity. Because I found that for many women who've spoken to me about the podcast and go, I just so love listening to women like describing how they got to that place and a little bit of that story because it helps, I think, all of us sort of unlock those doors in ourselves
Yeah,
because
yeah.
and it's happened for me through the podcast because cancer was the big wake up that was like, whoa, we've got to get back in touch with who you truly are. And it was a friend who introduced me to The Artist's Way, the book by Julia Cameron, and a
Mhm.
course that led me eventually on this path. But I would have never, I was saying, I can't do that course. I'm not an artist. And they're saying, well, an artist in the broadest sense, but still, like you said, I think we're also programmed around that, aren't we? That there are creative people and there are not creative people. And I used to think, oh, well, I'm not in that box. But as your authentic expression is creativity, isn't it? Like that's what I'm I'm feeling that like pulsing out of me now more than it ever did in my life. So
I love hearing that.
it never did, but I think the more, isn't it, the more we sort of the flow is was a big one for me. Sorry, I'm off talking again. I'll let you speak,
No,
but it's
no,
just it's connected
beautiful.
to
Well, you know, it's
yeah.
these are threads.
Yeah,
Everything
there's so many threads and
from the earth, you know, there are tendrils, and this is part of the creative flow. I knew as a child, you know, my mother had 7 children. She had been, you'd call her a bohemian, you know,
okay.
like she would have been, she's passed now. She would have, you know, born in 1923. So uh she had no parents really, and her grandmother was Swedish and no grandfather and didn't speak much English, very minimal,
Mm,
not to create too much of a story around it. And she was inherently, you know, very talented. And I think she went to 1 year of art school or studied. But as she had her children and life just kind of, let's just say, was busy and overwhelming, she didn't paint at all. She didn't work at all. Julia Cameron's book, my youngest sister, you know, the youngest of 7, gave her that. Like the last 10 years of her life, she had emphysema at the end of her life, 10 years. And that was her saving Bible. And before she passed, she had 6 daughters. She gave us all that book. And I've met Julia Cameron because she
have
lives
you?
here. Um,
Ah, yes.
and I I always knew I loved art and, you know, like to make collages and things. But there wasn't a whole lot of support of what you were here for and what your true calling was. And, you know, my father was very practical about making sure we were taken care of, and complicated, fabulous man, Irish man, Catholic.
With the name Hurley. Yes, I meant to
Yeah.
say obvious.
Yeah. He's very
Yeah.
proud of that. He passed 11 years ago. Um, And I imagine, and actually after he passed, he came in and said, it was scary for me that you would be an artist. You know, he wanted me to be a nurse, I'm afraid of blood, or a computer programmer. And I was like, I hate numbers. What? Like, can't I have anything else? Like, this is terrible. And and I went on to college and studied like everything, art history, English, but never art, one class, because it was like as you got closer and closer to what you really wanted, you would have to deal with your insecurities, your fears, all those voices that said, well, who are you to think you could do that? I mean, like, I really had that big time. And there
Mm.
was, like you, with, you could call it the catalyst, cancer. I mean, I had a grief that decked me, and it was my marriage. You know, I don't know, 30 years, 27 years married, 30 something years with one man, and dearest friends. He's a fabulous human being. He's a very good man. But when we separated and we had teenage kids, I didn't know where I was. I was making little collages, but I wasn't making art, like extending and sharing it. And I was guided, luckily, when you're on the kitchen floor and you've somehow driven the kids to the high school, now you're on the kitchen floor, like saying, what happened to my life? Where do I go? I mean, now I'm laughing. That was, I wasn't laughing then. I was crying into the mirror. Just help me, help me, help me. I mean, it was anguish of like, I thought I would die. I did. And I heard to go into the woods, and we lived on this island and we had a national park, and I somehow knew that that would help me live. And I was told, literally hearing this, lying there, you're going to prowl, you're going to crawl, you're going to climb, and you're going to dig, and you will come back to it. Actually, it didn't even say what would happen. I just went, okay, put me in the car. I'm kind of like disheveled, and the kids are thinking I'm pretty darn weird. Because they don't know what happened and why I can't cook dinner anymore. Um, and it guided me to Mother Earth, really, to the angels that were around, the fairies, the deer that would walk with me. Like I'd be sitting on rocks and start to sing and lying on rocks, big boulders, and sobbing and feeling this ancient energy come in. I was held. I could cry right now because of the true benevolence of these of what wanted to keep me here. Because on the egoic earthly realm, I was like, I'm out because I have two kids and I better not, but I really think I could go. And that was 2 years. I had to quit my job. I mean, you do everything on an island. At that point, I was a children's librarian, though I'm not trained in being a librarian, but I was good with kids and telling stories. And I wandered and I listened and I was guided. It's kind of amazing. I was doing ceremonies every morning to say thank you and ask where I would go that day. I was finding bones and tree trunks and crystals and putting them in the back of my car. And kids would get in at the end of the day. If I was on time, they'd be like, Mom, there's bones in the back of the car. Like, what are you doing? I mean, there's no room for our backpacks. Come on, Mom, you're crazy. I'd be like, guys, I don't know. Like, I have to do this. I didn't know then that it was how one grieves in a very holistic, organic, most divine way, but that's what I did. And I was guided. I did have a friend who helped, she had a catering business, and I could drive the van because I could cry in the van, deliver the food to the filmmakers who were on the island, take the dishes and put them back, cry all the way back. And she knew I was going through that, but I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't. So I could do a little bit of that. And she somehow told a woman who needed someone to, she thought, teach art to this older woman who was 104. One of the wealthiest women in America, happens to have a summer house on the island. And I thought, well, me? Like, I've never even painted before. She wants me to paint with her? And then something in me just said, you're going to do it. And I realized the winter before, I'm wandering around in ice floes and climbing up things that you'd say, don't do that. You're going to fall and die. And then I'd get to the top and do these ceremonies. And one of those ceremonies was looking out at her mansion overlooking the ocean 6 months before. And I was just praying for myself and for the earth and for all beings in my way. And then 6 months later, I'm in her house, her mansion, climbing up the moss-filled private road, into her house and sitting with this woman at 104 who she'd started painting. Here's for everyone who doesn't think they can, at 97. And really, it was about intuition. It was about a woman who lived another 3 years. But she was in that transition. She was in the transition of shifting from the earthly plane. I mean, she had this much vision, and she'd say to me, what would you like to paint today? I'd like to paint David Rockefeller, her best friend, Junior's gorgeous garden. So we'd set up, I didn't even know like how to set up a canvas or mix colors. I'd never done it before. And she's Actually, one thing that was funny was we were doing blue. She wanted a periwinkle, and I'm mixing up what I think. And she goes, "Oh, there's not enough blue." And I'm like, "You're barely able to see, but you know there's not enough blue." And she would hum. I'd have it up in front of her, and I'd just hand her the paintbrush, and she'd hum, and I knew then that there was something happening that was so much deeper on this creative level than seeing an image of that garden and translating it to look just like it. And there was something in me that went like, ooh. And then she turned one visit. I saw her every week. "Do you believe in forgiveness?" she asked me. I'm like, holy cow, this is so much like this is my realm, baby.
Mhm.
And and she talked about the need for forgiveness. Even at 104, this was hovering on her. And through this art, she was allowing herself to let all that come out, like the beauty was expressing. She didn't need it to look like anything else, and something that was there was coming out. And I would say that was pretty much one of the starts of my painting. Boy, I just said a lot.
Wow, you did. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's incredible. But it's a woman of 100 and, or what age was she at the time? You said nine,
104. And the
104 at
next
the time.
summer, I worked with her at 105. And then I worked with her at 106. She had houses in New York and Florida and Maine. And
And
the
like
day,
they, yeah, sorry, they're a family that would, let's say, there'd be differing views on, I suppose, you know, the whole world and what's going on and the
very
Rockefellers.
much.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that it's really weird because I was reading something, I'm reading a book that someone gave me. Sorry, this is sort of changing, but it's just come from
Oh,
when you
good.
mentioned the name Rockefellers, and some people may have heard, some people maybe not. And it's a book written by a guy. He says it's fictional, but I think it's really more about the true nature of how the world has been run, let's say. It's sort of mixing both of what you're saying. It's like I'm hearing like the organic, true, intuitive nature as a human being, as a divine human being, is emerging from this matrix of control that we've been living in. And that which has been, various people involved. And it's sort of quite interesting that family, I mean, I'm not casting this, but that's sort of coming from that, let's say more controlling way of being, in terms of how the world has worked. It's sort of a way of introducing you into sort of a very intuitive, creative life. I don't know, it just seems quite a,
Well, through this experience, and then it evolved further. Uh, I do feel there's a divine destiny. Like this was completely
mm,
right for me, for her, and also for that paradigm of top-down control.
yes.
And that I remember the third year, they were saying to me that her paintings didn't look like they used to look. They used to look more realistic. They used to look like they could go into a little art gallery in our town and everyone would say, "Wow, it's such a gorgeous view of that gorgeous part of the world, the ocean." And I said, "Well, this is what she's going through right now." And they were like, "Well, we'd like you to try this. And then somehow I had the wherewithal in me, and I must have started to come into my sovereignty again. I just said, if I'm going to do it, and I think she's enjoying it, it has to be done this way, that she's accessing something that is far beyond what an image looks like. And she's transitioning out of her body. Let's say that at 107, you have a right to go, and and that it this is to be honored. And they didn't mention it again. Like I continued with her, and I feel that any paradigm structure that we think is existing, they're all here to be. There's so much transition happening, and each one of us owning what we're talking about, this this authenticity, no matter whether it's talking to just a clerk in a store and you ask how they are, or you work with this wealthy woman, anything that can penetrate on that real human level, it can shift those tight structures.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's what I feel is happening.
Yeah.
Like more and more sovereign soul light coming into each person, remembering, not like it
Yeah.
never existed,
Yes. Remembering for sure.
and igniting. And part of our responsibility, really responsibility, is to respect that we have that and show up every day saying, can you work with me and through me? And I'll do my best to be in my service. And that's kind of what these paintings, I'd like them to go out. Go out. I have a whole bunch of them right now, so it's tight living quarters, but they're portals, and they invite in, just what we're talking about, this activation of the soul, to express and to say, I'm more than just my job, my work, my difficult past. I mean, I honor them. Do I honor them? And I believe we invite them all. We've chosen to evolve with that difficulty in every incarnation, whatever that is. But these works of art are catalysts, and I I was guided to do that when I got to New Mexico. Like I eventually left Maine, and um, in 2014, and then kind of heard in a dream. And well, I'll share it briefly. Like, marriage is ending, divorce is pending, kids are going off, house is selling that I've had for 15 years. My father has about 2 weeks to live, my sister about a month. You get to a new place, I don't have a job. And I'm like, on that checklist of stressors, I think I have them all. And then I did get a job at this gallery, and I asked myself, you know what? Am I okay? Like, I think I'm really okay, but I might be in serious grief. I don't think I'm depressed. I've had plenty of normal therapy. And I just said, is there something that could show up that would be like a spiritual support? I said this one night, like about 3 weeks after I got to New Mexico. And I got that job at the gallery. And the very next day, outside the gallery, there's a bench. There's a woman sitting, this gorgeous woman with wild blonde hair. She's probably 65. I'm like, whoa, she's gorgeous. And I'm sweeping, and within 10 minutes, I'm sitting next to her and I'm crying. And she says, oh, I'm a spiritual healer. Her name is Shoshana Love.
What's her name?
Shoshana Love.
Oh, it's a lovely name.
I
Shosha.
know.
I feel like I heard it before. That's beautiful.
Well, you might have. And
Maybe.
her mother had come in a dream the night before, telling her to go sit at that bench the next day. And her mother and she had not had, and let's just say it was immensely difficult. So for her mother to be in the other realms offering something that became a mentor relationship, now friends over 11 years, but she invited me to start painting, like just bring things in from my conscious awareness. And that, and the dream of Georgia O'Keeffe, like telling me to paint with fierceness in her face.
What was that dream? Did you mention?
Georgia O'Keeffe, that famous painter who lived near here, she came in and I just saw her. I used to really admire her when I was younger, before she really became super well known. She's super well known. And she said, paint. And I had been working with this woman in Maine, and I was like, paint. I said, I'm helping people paint in my
Mm.
dream. And
A
she said,
shadow artist, is it?
yeah, yeah. And she said, I didn't say that. I said, paint. And I was like, oh my God, you're terrifying, woman. And I, okay, okay, I'll paint. And then 2016, your year of change,
Big one for a lot of people, isn't it?
I was
2016.
given a studio of a famous artist, Agnes Martin, who lived here. She'd been in New York, then she came to New Mexico. And there I am in her studio. I had asked the day before, after that dream, if I'm supposed to paint, I got to have a place to paint. I can't be in a neat little casita. And then it was the next day, given this studio. And I knew it was to paint and to communicate with the beings all around there who were kind of troubled and a lot of tension in the land. And that's how it started.
And how, wow, what a story up till
It's kind of
2016.
wild.
I'm still with you.
Wild.
It's wild. And we've only got to 2016. But I'm just still with that image of the woman, the 104-year-old, and Rockefeller. And it just feels like something new, like what you said, a portal. Something new was being, I can't speak for her, so I don't mean to, but I'm just saying it sounds like from what I just feel more universally something was being born out of, and even the fact that she used the words forgiveness, something was being born through, like when you're talking about going from the different levels of control. Yeah, it just seems like a really powerful, something very, very powerful was happening there that is sort of echoing what's happening in the world.
I think so. I'd like to, see more of these paradigms of that, the structure of the haves, the have-nots, all of this, my ideal is to have a lot of that dissolve. I mean, it must, it will, it
It
is.
is, exactly. It is. We can,
The,
we
the,
can
the
see.
conflicts and the real edgy, what you would call shadow, I think is erupting to have light shone on it so that it will have the light of the presence, the light of the one, the light of God, Goddess, shine on those edges and ask humanity to really look at things and transmute it into the highest vibration of light and love. And that is our capacity. I don't I can't say about this incarnation, but it is to me what we're as a the evolution of humanity is about, that the higher levels to be returning, because I think we oriented there
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. What you remind me of there, and I think, gosh, I will just the power of your art and what you're doing in, and when you talk about grief, that's just really come up a lot for me recently. The power of grieving, that when we go deeply, I was listening to, I don't know if you've heard of Thomas Hobel. He's an Austrian
Yep.
spiritual
Yep.
teacher, and he was talking. I've only listened to half of it, a man about grief yesterday, because I've been on this sort of mission about grief. I feel really like finding people who, because to me, it's a big part of what you're talking about. This shift and remembering is we have to grieve, like, and through the grieving process turn that into, that's the alchemy really, isn't, into the light. And a lot of what he was talking about is we've lost that communal way of doing it together, like in the village, and most of us withdraw from it. I had grief through a marriage breakdown as well, and I thought I was going to die, and I was in a corner, like curled up, howling, thinking I'll never. I mean, I turned to alcohol for a good number of years because it was the only way to survive. It was that or die. But it's, do you feel, so it's sort of gone away, but that's a part of this coming together now. If the grief, because so much has been shown and falling apart, we've been sort of driven into the grief, whether we want to or not. But unless we do that and support each other in what you're doing and all of this creativity, and like cannot really emerge. Like what you described was you went into that grief and dark place, and out of that were remembered. Like, is it a necessary part of what we're doing now?
I believe grief is one of the most powerful initiations. The greatest anguish, like you could speak of, the greatest anguish of my life, and the most profound, and I can say it now, greatest gift of my life. It shattered things that had to be shattered. And from, from like the Indian, from the mud comes the lotus. Um, I think that's what we're doing. We're plowing through muck and mire, and there are little beautiful little water flowers there. And it's an exquisite invitation about how are we going to live, and what are the choices we're going to make? What are we going to honor? And I just have a fundamental trust that benevolence and goodness and love are in that mud, and that's what we're composting and bringing and alchemizing. Um,
I love
I
that.
know some people who haven't grieved much. Many people I know have. It is the alchemy. It is what shakes it up, or it can be a number of things, and it is an aspect of life. I had a woman, a great mentor. She actually looked just like my mother. After my mother died, I met her, and I turned one day and saw her, and I let out a hoot like, you look just like my mother. And she said, may this be a visitation. I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay. And she said, this difficulty is life being life, and there's nothing wrong. Because I had been thinking of it all as I have to get through it, and it's wrong, it's not right. And it's that softening. And boy, it can take a while to soften because you gotta, I mean, you're softening into the unknown, man. And it ain't for some people can't do it. Like I have friends right now who are super sensitive, artistic, and they are in immense psychological pain, and they're in hospital. Um, Not everyone, but a few. And I realize it's not necessarily easy, it isn't. And
Mm,
yet, we're asked to go through it as
yeah,
part of this initiation
yeah.
into.
But do you think we must, sorry to interrupt there, but like what he was saying really struck me as very important that we need to remember and go back to the tribe and the village where it was almost our responsibility to help in the process of grieving because if we remember, we're all part of the whole and, the collective, there's all this grief that it's almost incumbent on us nearly to do that. There was, because I've often felt that, and I've met people, like I've joined a few circles here in Galway, which I couldn't really find. I couldn't find any that were sort of really aligned with me. And I can see the hunger. It's like what you were saying at the beginning for authenticity and the real connection. And the way you spoke to those people who come into the gallery, it's like we actually don't know it until we feel it until someone they go, oh, what's that? Like something has been activated that I didn't even know was possible. But in these groups and circles, the first few weeks I've gone, it's just all grief. And I'm like, whoa, but together we can't, sometimes like what you described, isn't it? It's so hard to do alone. It's almost impossible. Like we need to do it together.
Well, we are we're a species of one, of togetherness, of families, of family. And I know Thomas is some of his work, and certainly the collective, uh, to have a community to support you is the best. And it is an imperative. When I was in the deepest grief, my community was the natural world. I didn't know how to talk to anyone. I didn't feel like I had skin. I didn't know how to be in a group. I think I did go to one group and share a little. And then the next week, somehow other people who weren't there were telling me about what I had shared, and it's all supposed to be confidential. And I was like, oops, I don't think I want to do that right now. Um, yeah, we're here to be in our communal families, to be in the tribe. I mean, tribal that's
We're
where we
returning there, I feel. I feel
yes.
we're returning there.
Yes, and
And it
not
will.
a
Mm,
label of what
mm,
is a tribe, but
mm.
any and anything, everything can be
Yes.
part of your gathering. And if you have this with some sacred ritual, with uh, a commitment to that we're all going to support each other, it's immensely powerful. I do have some really octogenarian friends here, and I met them yesterday for lunch. And there's a 44-year-old woman, and and it's an incredible, I mean, we all knew each other. I mean, as soon as we all met, we all knew. It didn't matter about our age now, or it's this, and they've been going through a lot because they're near having to move and leave their home and come to a new place. I just hung art for them, and whatever we offer, there's this, love is the precedent. Love has to be the core, and it isn't it can be as vast and as open as you can create. But it's imperative to have these communities
Mm,
supporting you.
mm. It's
I
like a family of frequency. I often hear. I like
oh, I
that
love
word.
that.
It is, and it just you feel it. You just feel it when you meet people. Or as you said, nature or whatever it is. I've heard people like you describe nature getting them through um, the most difficult, times when they of their lives when they couldn't talk about it. And maybe it was a time when people didn't talk about it. It's quite different now, but years ago it wasn't like that, wasn't it? We had to go it alone sometimes and and do you feel so as your art then as your beautiful art there behind you, how did that sort of open up? How, you talk about sort of that sort of connection you have with the divine, because a lot of people I talk to still don't. That's what I always was struck by about people who were involved in the creative scene, even in here where I live. They never talked about it in that language. And I always felt something was missing. Like, how can you create if you don't know that you're connected to something greater? Like, where do you think it's coming from? I always puzzled that, just even when I was younger. So
Well,
how
when in 2016, when I was really given this studio, the woman said, how much can you pay? Not this is the amount. How much can you pay? And I had just started at this gallery, and I said, well, I can afford this. And she said, well, you're the right person. I could feel the presence of this artist who passed but hadn't left yet. I could feel the energies of the earth. I knew, you must know you're cracked open in a way when you walk through these avenues of grief. You're cracked open. You're not, there's like things
exactly?
kicking in.
Cracked
And
open is the word, exactly.
and and I knew like my body vibrates a lot, like zzz, with yeses. And when I'm in the presence of a spirit, it's and I knew it was in there. And all I did was go to an art store, no clue what to buy, bought a roll of raw canvas, cut it unevenly, nailed it on the wall where this famous artist had painted. I'm like raw, real, and unconventional. And for some reason, I knew that I wanted, and I'm just like to drum. And I
Mm,
went to a little shop that had a drum, and I knew there was some, this is your communion with all that is. This is the ancient knowledge. I knew that something had to get me out of my thinking mind because I knew I was here to paint. And I started to drum before I do anything. I just went to an art store and bought every color I liked. Didn't matter that they mixed mediums, oil with acrylic, with pastel. I was doing everything. And the first two paintings were, bird spirits, and one was called Creation, and the other was She is Rosanna. I am Rosanna, I am ancient. And it was this long-haired feminine being in a red cloak. And I just flowed with it. And I think being that cracked open, there are no rules. It wasn't looking at it like, is this what it's supposed to be like? And I could feel the connection. And I
Mm.
would go every morning down into this bosque area, and I could feel that I probably had been there before. I could feel the presence of the natives who were traumatized there. And sometimes I'd climb up into trees and drum and sing these sounds. And that's what I did. And they, in that community, they had a art kind of weekend, and people came and they were like, whoa, what is happening? These are so intense. These are so amazing. And I sold a lot. Of course, I sold them for very little. I was just so happy that people were responding. But I realized also that it was up to me to honor that sacred that was coming through. It was in me and coming through me, and that I had to honor it. So I just continued saying, please show me, please guide me. I'm in. And I was supposed to have that studio for 6 weeks because it was for sale. And the woman said, well, someone put an offer in. I'm sorry. You're going to have to move. But it lasted 13 months, and I made 22 paintings, and they all sold. And I knew there was this chief on the land. I could feel him at night. I'd drum outside. It just, this isn't that I have something no one else has. This was just saying, I'm going to allow my 4-year-old or my cracked open woman self just express. I say, everyone get a drum or
Yeah.
use your tummy or your
I'm in a
chest.
drumming circle, and I have to say that's what led me to this podcast. I found my way to a drumming circle, and like you describe, Una, it was literally that I could feel like, oh my God, the whole vibration of everything is just sort of moving through me. Like it literally shook up, having been cracked open a good few years before. It was like another level of, okay, we need to now just shake up a bit more, or just waking up that connection. And that is what led me. And reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, I've said that that
Mm.
book, and a young astrology guy in a shop handed it to me. Like all these things, for those of you, listening, who might be going, how do I? Because if you haven't hit, not that you want to wish everybody hitting rock bottom, but everybody will. Well, I don't know, but I get the sense pretty much all of us will have. Of course, we will have to face grief of some sort, or breakdowns, and it's how we look at them, and that's exactly how I felt. That, but when you said cracked open, what really struck me as well is that when you're cracked open and you say there are no rules, it's like all the rules you tried to play by didn't work. So you're sort of like, okay, show me then, because I can't figure it out. That's how I felt. So that's the gift, isn't it? On the other side, when you just go, you're allowing in, you're calling in what is yours, what you are, is what I'm hearing from you. Like,
I I am grateful every day for that being cracked open. Someone gave me a book called like Healing Being Cracked Open or something. I couldn't touch it at a certain point because you're in so much pain. But then I was able to read it, and it was a woman who runs, or uh, it was an amazing book. And it was about different vignettes of people who had been broken open. I think that's what it's called, broken open. And I agree with you. Not every soul came here in this incarnation to go whoosh crack. Okay. And those of us who have, that's my feeling is I have an obligation to listen and to be of service and to receive, what that's part of what my learning has been. I gave and gave and gave and gave. I'm good at it. And I learned it. My mother did it, my grandmothers, all of them. And to now honor that I could receive in reciprocity. But for people who are not but and for people who, you know, really simple things like drumming, pause, pausing before you go into the market, pausing before you go to work, pausing as you wake up and say 5 things you're grateful for. Just say them out loud. Anytime in nature, preferably barefoot, just really, here we have prickly pear. I have to be a little more aware of where I stomp because of these cactus. But sitting with a rock, standing in the ocean, I hold rocks all the time. I carry them in my pockets. And it's a simple tuning in to you in communion with what is. I also have daily practices. I do a daily clearing because we're walking around, and when you're open and high vibrational, a lot's kind of can just come in and out. And I don't think of it as protection. I think of it as permission. I do like a gold encasement. I just switch that on after I clear out. And I do Archangel Michael and Faith and Archangel Ariel. They're walking with me. Kuan Yin and Mother Mary Anna. I I do invite them with intention to be of support because I know I'm powerful and I'm also vulnerable. And it requires, like you said, the tribe, and it isn't just the seen, the unseen
Mm,
are
mm.
pals, they're really energies that signed up to help humanity. And I'm grateful I trust that. I have to, and I do. And
And
that,
are they more, let's say, I know they're always there, but if you haven't, are they more, I suppose the veil is thinning as the frequencies, right? This sort of evolutionary period we're going through. So for you or anyone listening, I told you about my little story with the fairies yesterday evening. It's sort of interesting. It's the first time I left a little gift out for the fairies for um in exchange, I was asking for their help with something, and it was just interesting the evening before I talked to you. Two people had said to me to do it, and I'd never done it before, even though I am aware and I'm calling in more. So, do you feel they're more like we're here now because of the time that we're going through on the planet and they really want to help? Um, you know,
um, it's a great question. I believe these energies have always been present. I believe in star beings. I've communicated. One painting behind me is about Pleiadian angels. I just would go out at night and put my finger up and say, I'm connecting with you. I'm staying on the earth. Thank you. I'm not going up for a little visit, but I want to send you love and I want to receive your wisdom and love. And this painting emerged. I think they've always been there. I think we're in an unprecedented time of massive consciousness upheaval. We may experience that over and over and over, and I know we have before. I'm grateful to be alive now where to me, it's uh, a common language. Like I could talk about star beings in Santa Fe and everyone knows what you're talking about. I could talk about ascension or twin flames or the soul. And so I feel grateful that that's not something that is foreign to people. Um, I believe that there is great support right now if either individually or a group, if you set an intention for them to connect with you, those of the light and benevolent beings of the light, they will make connection with you. And you will, through your own inner knowing, know how to do that, how to. I have certain places I'm called to go. I just know it. I can tell when I'm walking in the woods. Suddenly I'm off the trail. I'm like, and my ego says, "Oh, you see what's happening?" And I go, "Stop, leave it alone." And I just follow, follow. And I'll come to a tree. And there's one in town, actually, right outside of where all the shops are. And for 3 years, I would just sit there and I'd hear, "Bring this." And if we don't question what we hear, because they are saying it in the quietest little thread, like,
Mm.
"Bring this. I would like this." Don't question it. Just do it. Why bother questioning? If you get out in your car and you always go right when you're driving to work and you look to the left and there's some flicker of something that draws your attention, that's how they speak. Go left. And then you'll end up circling around. And this happened to me. I went to a cafe and like there's a woman and the book in my bag is the book she's reading. We open it and it's about the synchronicities that happen when you follow. I'm like, look, they're always speaking. And you do have to be clear that you're asking for the energies of love and light.
Yes.
Be clear because there's many things buzzing around. I don't participate or even give it much attention because it just doesn't interest me because I've come up and I want to, but I know they're existing. But I do call on those energies that creation has given us to support us. And we all can. It's really that quiet. You do have to be a little quiet.
Mm. We
Have to
find
give,
that hard, don't we? We find that hard. Our world is noisy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the space of that.
Mm.
It's really it's the holy space where it can be even 5 minutes. I mean, we're not talking Friday night, we're talking five
No.
minutes of, and then as you practice, you're like, whoa, I think I'm realizing this is myself. I'm right here. And I'm walking in and with presence. And yeah.
Yeah. Is there just of your paintings there? I'm looking at one to my right. It's the back of your left, behind you and your left. And I literally felt such, no, the other side. I just felt such emotion that the big one
Oh,
down when I saw that. Now, so many people could be watching this, some could be listening. Can you just describe that? So, are different beings and different energies for different paintings? Is that how it sort of? Um,
yeah, it's a great, thank you. I feel more myself when I paint. I mean, I am in my connection. And I start with a blank wall. That's kind of the wall that over there where that messy part is. I just nail a canvas to the wall. Now I'm stretching my canvases, so I'm a little more conventional. I really do sit. I used to drum to get the download. I just sit. And I'll tell you, it's not always easy when you want to get something going and you're like,
mm,
"I'm waiting." Like, and you're in humility, you're in reverence, and you sit quietly. And then it does arrive. It's a word, a phrase, an image, and I don't question it. I just start with it. And, one time I heard this was in that little town, Galisteo, where I where the big chief was and Agnes Martin had lived, I heard 1,000 suns. I mean, it was just like this random thing coming, 1,000 suns. And I thought, okay, okay. And I started thinking, 1,000? Wow, that's going to take me a while because, one sun is yellow and I'm going to make 1,000. And I started going across, just not thinking how the composition and then I went to get more paint and I heard, no, 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 no. 1,000 suns, Sons. 1,000 suns. And then it just flooded in like, who walked this earth? And then I realized it was these energies from the native communities who had all lived where I was living. And they had all been booted out, killed, or moved way off into Colorado. And so it was this image of a chief. They were, but I just kept following. But I will say, in every painting, like every one of us that came in with a gorgeous little ego, I will go, oh my God, either this is so beautiful, if I touch it again, I'll wreck it, or oh my God, I better not touch anything. I'm so afraid. I stink at everything. I have no gift. This is ridiculous. And it's this place of fear, like going every painting. And then there's this thing in me now. I'm so glad I'm aware of it. Like, oh, here it is. And there's a little part of me, like that 4-year-old, it's like, oh, you think you're going to get me? Well, you're not. And I'll be like, put paint in my hands. I'll go and like do something that's totally shifts the preciousness of it all, maybe for 20 minutes. And these sounds come in. I get to write them all over the wall, all plastic, like things like Kiomete, Shanania Aka, 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 Shanania Aka, Aka, Aka. And I sing them and go crazy and have fun. And then it's like that voice of, well, the ego or control or the old, it's gone. We can do
Mm.
that in any aspect. It doesn't have to be when you're making a painting. It's like, what are our techniques to say, no, you're not going to get me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like these
I'm not
more
here.
and more layers, isn't it, coming off? What you've said there about the toning or the sounds, I've noticed that myself. One day as I was going to the drumming, this voice, like a Native American, was coming out of me. I found myself, told someone I got there, I was singing, but I do not know if I wouldn't call it singing, what it was. But it was almost this tonal, like you said. Is that it just feels like music, sound, sound, color, all of us are realigning us with our true nature, like our natural vibration.
Well, Celine, what a gift if you're
Mm.
singing. And it is this form of singing.
Yeah.
It's,
Just
see,
started. Sorry,
yeah,
just started
that
recently.
it it's the ancient. It's your communion with all that ever was. They are vibrations. I have a native great grandmother on my mother's side, and I can feel her like going, woo, come on with that. And it doesn't have to be a lineage. Like
Okay. Mm.
I've had incarnations as non-physical. I can remember incarnations in Ireland.
Yeah, you mentioned Ireland. Do you have a connection with
Yeah.
Ireland? You've been here,
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
you?
a couple of times, and it was pivotal and met
Tell me a
some,
little bit about them.
oh my gosh. Uh,
Was it connected with your father initially, or were you,
no,
no, it wasn't.
a very powerful woman seer. Uh, I knew that I wanted to leave here, and she said, "You have a next step." I was in the town, and she said, "I want you go in the
Oh.
woods where you walk because you're being called to somewhere. And I heard Ireland, and I had wanted to go. Actually, I had been there in 2010, right after we separated, my husband and myself. And I was like, really raw, let's put it that way. And I went with a small group from the little island. Half of them ended up being close friends with my former husband. It was like, can I get away from this? But I had one experience then. I wish I could remember exactly where it was. I think we went to the north and it was misty, and a lot of the people were older and they didn't want to go out in the mist. And I'm like, well, heck, we're in Ireland. You're going to stay in this little bus the whole time if you don't want to go out in the mist. And so the driver was from Dublin. He was about my age, and he had grown up on a pig farm, and he was a raw, real, joyful being, smoked a ton. And he said, be back in 10. I said, okay, I'll be back in 10. I don't know what happened. And
Minutes or hours.
I, it was like a boggish, like I didn't even know we were near uh, um, the coast. I started running, took off my shoes, left them there, running through the muck, splash, running. And then all of a sudden, come to the cliff. And I'm like, and there's a cross, and there's all these alms. I can feel it right now. And sometimes I know when the angelic realms are present or my guides, like a fluff of some kind will flow in front of me. And so out of, or a dragonfly or a bird, but this was a fluff way off, and I'm looking down and I'm thinking, and I'm reading the little things, I'm seeing what's there. I leave a stone, and then something told me to go back. And I just ran and ran. I mean, I knew exactly where to run. And I get back, and he comes running out, the driver of the car, and said, where were you? The van, where were you? Where were you? You've been gone for an hour and a half. I was like, what? And he said, everyone thought you fell off and you were dead. And I was like, no. And I got in and everyone cheered and I told everybody. And he said, oh, you found it. You found it. That's a place, a holy place where women go and girls, for all of the men who have been lost at sea, and they come and leave things, and you were meant to go there. And I was like, this was, I wasn't fully into my awakening moments. So I was like, whoa, what? I've had a few experiences, and I house sat for a very lovely Mary Helen Hensley, who's
Oh, I've heard of her.
yeah,
Yes, the
I
woman
house
I
sat.
know. Yeah, in the middle is in the, yeah, I'm not going to be
She's in
saying.
Athlone,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. I won't be naming her home, but yes,
in
yeah.
for a month for her two pups, and I met that and that visit Pat Noon
Oh, yes, yes.
does
I've come across
fairies.
him.
I went
Yeah.
to his place, and it was just like, and then went to had a couple of friends from Australia meet me, and we just spent, I'll tell you, this was magical. Wake up in Athlone in Mary Helen's house. Each of us meditate. Whatever comes in, we share at breakfast, and then we go off for the day. And you might hear large tree where our arms go around. You might hear crystal lake, or another phrase I heard, I don't know, I think it was Grace Grove. Well, we just start driving. Of course, I wasn't driving, thank goodness, because I'm terrible on that side of the road. And the Australian man is used to it. And so then we come to a place where we don't know to turn left or right. There's a sign, Grace Grove. then we end up we're down near the cliffs of Moher, but not really. And we come to this lake. The phone stops. We can't find our way. There's this little like path leading up to these grove of trees. We somehow know to go up. One of them we all put our arms around and we start singing, and that's the tree. And then we look down and there's the crystal lake. And we were completely following the guidance. And the thing, Celine, is whether it leads to something or not, it's not about that. It's not like, oh, we got the golden egg at the end of the tunnel. It's that you're saying yes to what's being given to you. And yes, that you're willing to surrender and trust and bring joy into this journey. You don't know what it's about. You may not get tangible anything at the end, but you have followed the spirit. And that, that, I mean, I could do that all day, quite frankly.
That is the way, though, isn't it? We're designed to live. Like
I think so.
it feels more. I'm not saying I do it all that, but I'm more in that than I ever was, and I feel much happier when I am. But then, like you said, the ego and the voice will come in and go, "Oh, but you wasted some time, and you have to go off and earn money, or you need to do this, or you need to do that." So it's like. Yeah, it's where it feels like when you're talking all the time, this sort of in between worlds, like we're sort of shifting from that way of being that we all were conditioned. And yes, we maybe thousands of years ago, but like we're in that sort of bridge stage where nearly half, that's how I feel. Part of me sometimes is having conversations that I'm having a certain conversation and then I'm off with someone else and it's a whole different, like I feel almost feel like two different people sometimes. But it's like we have to inhabit that right now, though, isn't it? It's in trying to be as authentic as possible, but sometimes I don't know how you said you're surrounded by a lot of people where, you can have these conversations. Sometimes I find, I'd go out the door. If I started talking something like, I mean, you just can't. So you're going, okay, I'm doing the best to be as authentic. And I think many people find that we're sort of emerging out of this to sort of be more authentic and trust what's coming out of us, even though it may not be always received. It may be received, but maybe not in the way that we expect. But what would you say when going through that process for someone who's sort of just in the early stages going, oh my God, this is all crazy. What's going on in this world? That's the way I was. And how do I be? How do I?
Well, a couple of philosophies or premises. I believe this is Earth school. Like we're on Earth school. And um, any amount, some people have come for a huge amount of learning, and others will incrementally learn. And even if you're, Celine, as you are, as your vibration rises, you are walking and being and entering in, visiting your mom, all of it. You're walking in that vibration. You're affecting everything that comes near you. It's sharing that vibration. And if you come into a denser, lower vibration and you consciously say, I'm staying in my vibration and I see the highest and best for all, I see the outcome I desire, that everyone today will be touched, not by my greatness, but that I'm in my authentic self. And guess what? You can be too. And it's not necessarily something you understand. To me, a lot comes from the feeling.
Mm,
Like the more we get in our bodies,
yes,
you get
yes.
on the earth, you start feeling that you have feet and you have vibration and your heart does pound and there is things tipping your third eye if you allow those energies. And I believe everyone is touching that now.
Mm.
And I couldn't speak about the future. I can say what
What do you feel if you're sort of, because I think it's nice to do that, to sort of just
no,
feel
I
into it
see,
and yeah.
um I feel honored. This is one of the greatest times on the planet. I feel there's more awareness of what's supporting us from the intelligences of the star. I mean, I have felt their presence. I feel we're all more awake than ever. There's a lot of there's a lot of difficulty, and I must stay. It's like a tenaciousness that kept me alive, that there is a purpose to all of us being here rather than just the heavy. And that doesn't mean that you ignore it, but you, with your consciousness, with the loving awareness of who you are, you can affect and break up those little, like, massive amounts of shadow with your light. I mean, that's what I do in my readings. I hold that intention that we are here to really rise into our greatest beings, and whatever is to evolve from that will evolve. And it's how I have to walk. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful I have a handful of friends who operate that way, supportive. Um, I also haven't read a newspaper in 10 years.
Yeah, and that
TV.
helps. Or than TV.
Yeah,
I let
I
go of
just,
that
I'm
for the
aware
news.
it's there, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I'm aware that the gifts that I can share are what I'm sharing with you. If I were to be maneuvering in more of the daily minutia, I, I- I'm less, um, I have less of an impact. That's
yeah.
how I feel.
Yeah. And how did the intuitive work evolve, Una? How did you come into that? Like you're saying, I know the art, probably it's all intertwined, but like you say, you do readings as well for people as
Yeah.
how did
Well,
that?
Celine, when I invite everyone to just claim your greatest self. Like when I really
Mm,
said, there's stuff that comes through me, vibrations move. I knew that I love like archetypes and imagery, and I've been through my own woo. And so I love ritual. I love creating sacred spaces. And I had always done, well, probably for 20 years, done little things for friends. But then I started here. A deck in a bookstore fell out, I kid you not, bonked me right here on my head. And it was a deck of fairy cards and fell onto the floor. And I went, okay, are you going to pay attention to this? You're going to ignore this. Like it just friggin' hit you in your third eye. Fell from behind. I was like, okay, I get it. I'll buy it and we'll see what happens. And I also believe everyone has this capacity to, I love exploring. I pulled a card before
Yeah.
our sharing. I love it as a ritual and creating, not just grasping, but creating a sacred space and saying, let's communicate and I'll honor what I receive. Um, and they're really, what I find is they activate, people immediately feel it. They feel their soul essence. Often people cry like within 5 minutes because there's been such a dearth of connection of their truth and their longing. We're all longing for our
Mm,
truth, like who
yeah.
we are. And and I'm like, this is great. They're like, I'm crying. I'm sorry. I'm like, I love this. Your soul is talking to you. Now we can start, you know,
Yeah.
and and then because of the intention I hold of really the joyous light of who you are, you're going to have your stuff. that you are more than just walking in this body. And I hold that intention, and I think everything immediately arises to that. And they pick the cards. So they're aware that there's some knowing that they have. I'm just a conduit to say, let's create a sacred place. I mean, I'm not just that, but,
Yeah.
and if anything, they don't ever want to have a reading again because they know they have it in them.
Mm.
That knowing of communion with the divine and their greatness has been activated.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's how I feel the paintings do it too.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can feel that that one keeps drawing me. I'm
Is
just,
it this one right here?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's angel of alignment, like aligning what we're talking about, alignment
yeah.
and the golden door. And the golden door opens into the quantum field, the field of limitless possibilities. And it's this, uh, and there were a little bit of energy of native, the earth. There is soil in that, pinion sap from outside my door. And then the angelic was just there as a
Mm.
as a head. And right before the end of the painting, um, I was missing my mother. Uh, and I just said, Mom, can you come in? Because sometimes she can come in. I said, Mom, can you come in? And I wasn't feeling that feeling I get. And I was like, Mom, when you're ready, if you can, I know it might be a lot to come through, but I'd love it. And a day went by and I'm working on that painting. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting kind of a reddish brown paint and pencils, and I'm making this braid. And I'm like, whoa. And then all of a sudden, I went, boy, Mom just walked in because she had long red hair and wore a braid. And I'm like, she literally just said, I'm here through the painting. It was the coolest thing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so cool.
It's
So
that's amazing. That's so we have, like you're saying, like we have access to all of not just our own lineage, but all of the ancestral and the lines and the various lives. Like yeah, I definitely feel something with the Native American, and that came in with someone else I was talking to recently, I think. And the very day it did, I was up in the attic just to share. It's so funny, like what you're describing, how all these things for people just it's like just paying attention, and I wouldn't have paid attention before, but on the very day someone had said something about some connection with another lifetime Native Americans. I was up in the attic looking for something and I found a knitted Indian, and my mother had knitted. She's a fabulous knitter. And it was a doll. I brought it down. I have her sitting and with the plaits that you're describing. And she's now sitting just on a shelf. I'd forgotten about her. I went, oh, I remember you. Isn't that so interesting? And
brilliant,
hmm,
brilliant. And I highly recommend,
yeah.
Celine, that you create any kind of sacred space you want, sit with that doll and say,
Mm.
what can we share with each other? Because they're trying to talk to you. It isn't a
Yes.
coincidence you went up to the attic and
I
found the
know.
doll.
And I went and put her in
And
a
it,
spare room, so I'm sorry. I'll take you out.
no, well, you can even say that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're literally beings.
Yeah.
And you obviously have had lives, we all have, of
Yeah.
different, incarnations of different, um, all kinds of
Yeah.
connections. But that doll is one of those conduits that wants to, you don't know what could come from that.
I
And,
know.
you
Thank you
know,
for opening that up. Isn't it funny how just through a conversation and you sharing there, and I was drawn to the picture again, this is, I think, the powerful times we're living in now. I know maybe it's always been available, but it's just more, whoa, it's we're not alone, for all the times in our lives when you described your grief and that, when you are in that, I can remember it. I'll never forget that feeling of deepest grief. If anyone's going through it right now, it's not a laugh matter. It is so, so, so painful that it can be hard to imagine what can come from it. But I suppose I'd hope if you're listening, wherever you are on the spectrum of your life, we'll all meet, and whoever listens to us two talking, isn't that it? We'll meet it wherever, and hear what they need to hear. Um,
Yeah.
from what you.
And this really simplest thing of a rock, a tree, body of water, anything, it's available for everyone, even if you live in
Mm.
the city. And it will hold you. It literally held me in life, sort of gave me some of its life. And I really, it is an anguish. There's no doubt about it. And you, there is a possibility to evolve out of it. I mean, you and I are walking, and then there's blossoming from it, which can feel like, whoa, how would that ever happen? And it did. And that creates an immense gratitude, like that, from that scarcity and that terror and tremble, that life, really incredible life, can be birthed. I mean, woof, that's like a
Well,
gift.
oh, it is. Oh, it is. When you think sometimes you won't make the next day, I can remember going, "Oh, please don't let me wake up. Not another day like this. I can't do it." But something happens. But also, like you said, the asking, when that sort of, I think that's another thing when, even people, it's usually, isn't it, in our darkest hours, you cry out. I cried out many times, and things did happen, and things did shift, little things I didn't understand. So I think that's another important thing, to just, if whatever you do or don't believe in, it doesn't matter. Just cry out to existence, to life. Something will come in. But we have to ask, though, don't we?
I believe we have free will.
Mhm.
We have to ask.
Yeah.
I just sense in the human will ask, out of whether it's desperation, the do, please help me.
Yeah.
I remember that one. Please help.
Yeah. I
I can
think we're
still,
almost programmed. It's before we sort of, there's almost something built in there that in most cases we do, on whatever way, on our knees, or just, I can't do this, please help. There is, and it just feels, I don't know, I feel very emotional now, but I just feel it's needed on the planet. I just feel there's a lot of grief, because so much is, apart from the individual, so much of what we knew, like I had my world fall apart, you had your world fall apart, and people I've met and know, and friends whose lives fell apart in different ways many years ago, in different ways. I'm not saying they're coping better now, but it's a little bit easier because you've had a few breakdowns. But if something major hasn't happened, and then you're watching the world, like, what's happening? Nothing that I thought was real is real, or, what's going on. So I think there is a lot of grief right now as well. The earth is grieving, isn't it? The earth is sort of waking up and shaking up as well, shaking off the old.
I feel the truth of that, and tenderness is, it's the feminine. It's, rather than battle or try to fix these difficulties, there has to be another avenue. And that's where that divine feminine energy of nurturing, nourishing, tenderness, um, soft,
Soft, yes, the word you said earlier. Yes, yeah.
soft way of moving that combines the strengths and initiative and power of, the masculine energy with this. And I believe that is what's happening, and must, because it ain't been working, where you just plow through with force and people fall away and others rise up. And so I explore. Yeah, my guides just knocked on the ceiling. Love the way they do that. Um, I feel that I ask, and I try every day to tune into a tender place, like where I'm soft with myself, rather than what I didn't finish or I didn't do. I mean, I'm on it a little bit, but I really try to say, how can you see this with tenderness as opposed to what was wrong? and it's been helpful for me. Um, it just it works better for me.
Before we draw to a close, because I know it's been, yeah, I didn't realize we've talked a long time. I just feel, yeah, have the fairies anything to share before we finish up? I just feel
Oh, that's
like the
great.
fairies.
That's that's their yeah. Well, you see, I love this ritual. I light a candle every day for the fairies that are in my home and the angels, and the fairies that are outside my home and the angels. I feel they're asking all of us to connect more fully with this playful, benevolent, optimistic, these beings that are here. They want to connect. And it's as simple as finding one of your favorite places and sitting. Sitting is good, so you're comfy, and saying, how can I connect with you? How can I play with you? What is it that you would like me to bring you? What is it? And listen. I mean, the very first time I did that, there were fires going on up, controlled burns going up on the ski mountain above me. And I heard and didn't know why. Fire truck, please. And I'm like, okay, now I know I'm cuckoo. I'm being asked to bring a fire truck. And it was like small, wooden, no plastic. I'm like, okay, what am I hearing? And then I brought it. It took me a while to get one. And I realized it was the fairies asking for some kind of empowerment. They felt that I mean, they live in those realms and they can go in and out of their dimension, but they knew the birds, the animals, the trees were all being burned. And they wanted some kind of empowerment to assist. And they knew I could help them with that. So these fairies, these elementals, the sylphs, the undines, they want to work with humanity, and it's not just for silly. It's a deep communion of the benefit of the earth. And so they're asking for you to sit with them and ask, what can I bring you? How can we connect? And it is for the good. So that's what I'm hearing right now and feeling vibrating through me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Una.
Yeah.
To go out to the little tree where I left my little gift for the fairies yesterday. But I did hear it when I was in that shop because I went in with that intention and I just knew the two stones that I saw straight away. I said, "Oh, I have to get that." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Opalite." And the ring that I lost, one of them is opal. And then the other one I picked up and I was telling the girl, I thought she'll think I'm crazy what I'm going to do, but she didn't. She was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, well, that's a tree agate or moss agate. They'd like that, I think." So I went, "God, I can't believe I'm having this conversation." I thought she'd think I was crazy, but she didn't. So that's what I did. So even
Oh,
walking around when you have that in the intention, I think just things come in. I just knew, get them. I just knew. Um,
and
that's yeah.
Celine, more and more of that will come in with ease. And then
Mm.
you're walking with listening and exchanging, and you're still grounded, you still go to work, but this becomes part of your thread that you're in communion with these realms. And it's not for just me or others, it's everyone has this. And they're eager to explore with us. I mean, it expands their experience.
Yeah, through us. That's magical. What a magical life we can live doing that. And I'll just say again for those for you, people listening, I really have started to do that. I think that's what's been coming in, and every day I ask it in the morning, just show me, show me, show me, show me. I'm up for this. Because every other way I tried to live didn't work. So I would say it does. This is, for me anyways, I can say this is the way. Has its challenges because you're letting go of control, and I want things this way and they should be this way, but it's always turned out, doesn't it? It always turns out to be more magical than you could ever have planned. That's what I think. You just couldn't plan it, like you described in your stories. So, thank you, Una. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that for art, for readings?
My website, uh, my website,
I'll put that up in
yeah,
the,
and I have my email and my phone number. I'm doing my own website now. My favorite website person and favorite friend, he passed, and he's like, "You can do it." I'm like, well, it doesn't look quite the same, but it's very accurate. It has all the art
I
and
had a
talk
look at,
about
yeah, it's lovely.
weaving.
Well, yeah, I've seen your OonagHELisaHurley.com, is
Yeah.
it? Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, and I would love to hear from people. I mean, it's this is how we create that community and extend it. So, and Celine, I'm so grateful, whatever guided you this away.
I
And
know that's it truly is, listeners. I swear to God, I cannot. Well, this is happening to me an awful lot recently, and maybe that's part of it to let go of that sort of rational, I need to figure it out way of being. I just find sometimes things are just being like my story with the rings. It's just like a big chunk of time is gone, and there is no way the old me would have been stressing and working back through the days and writing down where I was. And now I've just gone, just hand it over because that ain't working. So yeah, let the magic take over.
yeah, we came for the mystery, you know.
Mystery. We came for the mystery. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And thank you. I feel
Thank
so
you.
blessed. This was so enriching for me. So
And
thank
me
you.
too. And I'm sure everyone listening.
Entertaining.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
And thank you all. Thank all the guides, all the other
Yeah,
beings here with us. Thank you so much.
yeah.
And yeah, until the next time, everyone, take care for now.